Hi everybody, today we're going to talk about lesson 28, adding and subtracting fractions with common denominators. So if you have them, I'd like you to get out your fraction pieces, and if not, be prepared to draw a whole bunch of circles, okay, or squares, whatever your preference. But we're going to be talking about what we do when we add fractions with common or like or the same denominator. So we're going to start by modeling this. Use your fraction manipulatives to illustrate this addition. Then write a number sentence for the addition. Well, I'm going to draw fraction pieces for you. So here we have two boxes. And I have 2/4 colored in here. And then I'm actually going to change colors, and I'm going to color in 1/4 here. So I want to know all together how many fourths have I shaded in. When you add or subtract fractions, your denominator of each addend must be the same, and it does not change. These are still fourths. I have 2/4, I add another fourth, and I'm still going to have fourths. I don't suddenly have eighths, okay? It's the same unit. But now I had 2/4, I add one more fourth, and now I have 3/4 altogether. So as you can see, 3/4 of my square has now been shaded. And just like a normal addition, 2 in my numerator plus 1 equals 3. So 2/4 plus 1/4 equals 3/4. The big thing you need to remember is that the denominators do not change. Okay? All right, let's look at example 2. Example 2, use your fraction manipulatives to illustrate this subtraction. So we are going to draw a square, 2, choose this a little too big, so we'll erase this part. Okay. All right, I have tenths, and I'm going to start off with 7 of them, shaded in. Okay, but then, because I'm doing subtraction, I'm going to take away 4 of those tenths. So 1, 2, 3, 4 of those tenths are now gone. So we started with 7/10. We took away 4/10, and I'm left with 1, 2, 3 tenths. Notice again, the denominator does not change. The denominator indicates my units, how many pieces a shape has been broken into. The top tells me how many of those pieces I have. So I started with 7 out of the 10. I took away 4 of those 7, and I'm left with just 3/10. Okay? All right, let's move on to example 3. Okay, now we get a little trickier. Quentin mixed 1 1/4 cups of juice concentrate with 1 2/4 cups of water. To find the total amount of juice, add 1 1/4 and 1 2/4. So when you add fractions, I want you to add them vertically. So you're going to line up your ones place. So here I have 1 1/4, and then I line up the ones, and I line up the fractions. So think of this as like lining up your decimals or your money places if you're thinking about money. You always want to line up your fractions. Okay? Then my fourths don't change. Okay? So I know my fraction will be out of fourths because the denominator doesn't change. It's just the numerators now that I add together. So 1/4 plus 2/4 is 3/4. Then I go and I add my whole. 1 plus 1 is 2. So Quentin used 2 and 3, or had 2 3/4 cups of juice. Now, if I was to write it horizontally, 1 1/4 plus 1 2/4, that's fine, but again, you have to remember, you have to add fractions to fractions. 1/4 plus 2/4 is 3/4, and then your wholes. 1 plus 1 is 2. Okay? All right, you can do it vertically or horizontally. I prefer vertically, this way, the first way we did it, because when we start to borrow or to carry, it's going to be easier. All right, let's look at example 4. There were 2½ chicken pot pies in the refrigerator. Javon ate 1½ pies. To find the number of pot pies left in the refrigerator, subtract. So we have 2½ pies minus the 1½ pies that he ate. So we can say 1/2 minus 1/2 is 0. The other way to think of it is that my denominator will still be the same. But I have 1 minus 1. 1 minus 1 is 0. And if I have 0 in my numerator, then I really have nothing. Okay? I have no pieces, no halves, so I have nothing. So 2 minus 1 is 1. So there was 1 chicken pot pie left. Chicken pot pie left in the fridge. Okay, so I'm going to subtract my fraction first. If I was to draw a picture, I have 2½ pies. Well, I'm getting rid of 1½. So there's my half, there's my 1, and I'm left with just 1 pie. Feel free to draw pictures if that helps you to understand what the fractions are doing. Pictures are a great way to kind of help it make sense in your mind. Okay, example 5, the last one. Fernando estimates that it will take 2½ hours to finish reading a book and 1½ hours to write a book report. To find the amount of time he needs to finish the assignment, add 2½ plus 1½. So I have 2½ hours to finish reading plus 1½ hours to write the book report. So I know that 2 is in my denominator, so it will still be a 2 in the denominator. And now I add my numerators. 1 plus 1 is 2. And now I go to my whole number. 2 plus 1 is 3. But I know that 2 halves is the same as 1 whole. So I'm actually going to reduce or simplify this. Instead of 3 and 2 halves, I'm going to change this 2 halves to a 1 and add it to the 3. So it will take him 4 hours to finish reading the book and write the book report. Okay, so remember, whenever your numerator and denominator match, they're the same number, that means that it can be converted into 1 whole. And then I added that whole to the 3 hours to get 4. Okay, off to your lesson practice for today. A through D, just 4 of them, and I will see you in the morning.